It's a nice park.
Okay, so the agenda's
very
missing. Oh,
nice.
no, it's here.
No, it's here, it's just not.
They can move around with it on.
I call this meeting to order of the North Adams City Council for September 27th, 2022. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Blackmer,
Here.
Barbo,
Here.
Bona,
Here.
Harpin, Obasahan,
Here.
Oleskowitz,
Here.
Sapienza,
Here.
Shade,
Here.
Wilkinson.
Here.
9 yeas, we have a quorum. Please rise for a moment of silence. And the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a motion to approve the minutes of August 23rd, 2022.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Thank you.
I abstain also, I wasn't here.
Okay.
2 abstain.
2 abstain, no objections. Hearing of visitors on the agenda items. Anyone wish to speak to a specific agenda item, please approach the microphone, give your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes and no personal attacks, please.
I'd like to ask the president, can I speak on more than one item if I stay within my 2 minutes?
Yes, you can.
Oh, I can.
You just have to stay in with total 2 minutes.
We stay within 2 minutes.
Total, all the things. You don't get 2 minutes an item.
2 minutes each?
No, you don't get 2 minutes total. You can talk on 5 things, go right ahead.
Okay, that's what I want to know. I just want to mention,
Okay.
okay. You know, the city keeps going, it's, the first one is 11826, various fees. You know, they keep going up on everything in this city. The water rates, the sewer, and the landfill and all that kind of stuff. And now they're going to go up on all different fees. And the next thing is 157, parking violations on different streets. You know something? You can ban all the parking you want, put up signs all you want, but unless there's some enforcement, it doesn't make any difference. People don't care, they don't read, and the police are so busy, they just don't have time to address all this stuff. I've mentioned that before at the council meetings. And the next one is 12161, the National Recovery Month, and I agree with that. Okay, but the mayor is sending a mixed signal, because they just approved.
Mr. Kerman, you have to speak into the microphone so people can hear you at home.
Oh, okay, they just approved the largest marijuana growing thing in the industrial park down there. It's sending the wrong message to the young people. Marijuana is a entry drug, okay, and we got Narcan everywhere you go. And, you know, they're probably saying, well, if I just take some marijuana, it won't make any difference. Yes, it does. You cannot drive a car while you're smoking marijuana. Okay? And it is a drug. It's an entry drug.
Mr.
And
Kerman,
everything else, they progress from there into
Mr.
something
Kerman,
harder.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, name and address for the record.
Hi, Barbara Alexander, and
So
110 Wells Avenue and 89 Wells Avenue. My official address is 89 Wells Avenue. I am speaking to the 11,790 short-term rentals. And I'm not very good at the 2-minute. I just can't keep track of time, so feel free to just tell me when. I have 5 quick points, I hope. So regarding the proposed ordinance, so Part 10.13.5, Part 1, Department of Inspection Services shall have the authority to promulgate regulations to carry out and enforce the provisions of the ordinance. Delegation of authority is one of the most controversial parts of our government. It's been fought out up and down all levels of government with the Supreme Court and everything, and so I would just advise to move very carefully about delegation of authority. I also keep seeing statements in the media about having more short-term rentals means fewer long-term rentals. That's certainly an issue in cities like Boston or San Francisco that have housing shortages, but North Adams is not geographically limited or pressed with population growth, and it's a fundamentally different situation. And in fact, if you have outside investors who are interested in investing in North Adams for short-term rentals, those people are not going to hit a wall of regulation and decide to shift their investment over to long-term rentals. They will just go somewhere else. And you're more likely to cause investment that is being made in other areas of business within North Adams to sort of generally flee.
You're at 2 minutes.
Am I up?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council on the agenda items? Okay, without objection, I will move Council Paper 12,161, Mayor's Communication number 93, requesting time to present a proclamation in support of National Recovery Month. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilor Blackmer, President Blackmer. I'd like to call Wendy Penner and former Mayor Alkenbright up. It is my honor to proclaim September 2022 as National Recovery Month, and I'll present you with this proclamation, and I'll be happy to read it. Whereas the residents of North Adams value their physical and mental health as well as that of their families, loved ones, neighbors, and colleagues. Whereas the misuse of prescription and illegal drugs remain a national epidemic. And whereas more people now die each year from accidental drug overdose than in auto accidents. And whereas addiction and substance misuse are diseases that recognize no economic, education, generational, or social boundaries. And whereas addiction is a chronic and treatable disease, that treatment is effective and recovery is possible. And whereas men and women in recovery showcase the power each of us holds to transform ourselves, our families, and our communities. Whereas community support, reducing the stigma, significantly contributes to an individual's ability to achieve and maintain recovery, and contributes to positive ways both locally and around the nation. And whereas designating a recovery month in the city of North Adams is a fitting way to increase public awareness for substance use disorder, abusive substance use disorder, other supportive resources for those currently living with addictions, as well as their families. It also provides a program of healing and remembrance for those that have lost a loved one, physically or emotionally, due to drug-related incidents. Now, therefore, I, Jennifer A. Maxey, Mayor of the City of North Adams, is proud to proclaim September 2022 as National Recovery Month.
like to thank you, Ray? Thank you, Ray.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Maxey, for your proclamation. Thank you to our city councilors for your support. And it is your support and the support of our community that have made so much possible for those suffering from substance use disorder and their families, right here in North Adams. And unlike the political and stigma-based interference found in so many other communities around solutions for prevention and harm reduction, the city of North Adams has risen up to understand that to combat the problem, multiple programs offering multiple services provide for the best solutions and the best outcomes. Over the past 12 or so years, it's been absolutely heartwarming to see how our leaders have embraced recovery, and I just want to thank you all so much. I'd also like to point you all to a column in today's Berkshire Eagle written by Dr. Jennifer Michaels. Please read it. It speaks to harm reduction, the backbone of recovery. Please read that article, or that commentary. I want to take a quick moment to recognize those who are supporting recovery by providing all things prevention and harm reduction right here in North Adams. A plethora of services that maybe even all of you don't know of all of them. But the Breen Center, of course, the Keenan North Recovery House, Spectrum, Berkshire Harm Reduction and Berkshire Health Systems, Alternative Living Centers. Pastor Dave Anderson and Reverend Mary Frances Kearns provide so much support. The Berkshire Food Project, Northern Berkshire EMS, NAPD, and North Adams Fire Department. The Berkshire Overdose Addiction Prevention Collaborative, the Northern Berkshire Community Coalition, Savita Health, the Lewison House, the Berkshire Opioid, our countywide collaborative, our entire legislative delegation, our sheriff and DA, our mayors, and other local leadership who support this work in so many ways. The entire peer recovery community, including the 12 STEP fellowships, and mostly all of those people who work to provide the services that are making such a difference. I want to very simply give this council one word to remember tonight, and that is HEAL. The city of North Adams is one of 16 communities in the Commonwealth that will be benefiting from the Healing Community Study over the next 15 months. Mayor Maxey is aware of and is very supportive of this effort and the opportunities and the resources it can bring to North Adams and Northern Berkshire. I'd ask the mayor and this council to allow myself and a couple of others to be placed on the agenda at a future meeting so you'll understand the magnitude and intent of the study and what it can mean for recovery right here in North Adams and our Northern Berkshire region. So if there's a councilor who'd like to sponsor us, let me know, please. To close, our signs, you've seen them all outside, say Voices of Recovery. But I'd like you all to see the faces of recovery, those that you serve with your support and advocacy, and those who thank you for your service. So if there's anyone here in recovery who'd like to stand, those seeking recovery, family members of folks in recovery, or seeking recovery, if you'd like to stand, please do so. Madam Mayor, councilors, these are some of the bravest folks that I know. Bravest folks I know. Thank you all very, very much.
Yeah, no, you have to stay.
I have to stay?
Oh, yeah, you have to stay.
You want to give us 1 minute?
Yeah,
You
no.
want to stay?
No, you're welcome
No,
to
I
stay.
don't.
I'll give you, you are welcome to stay and watch sausage be made, but just give you a few minutes. Thank you. Council Paper 9513-31, an ordinance to amend Chapter 7, Section 7-11 of the revised ordinances of the City of North Adams regarding the change of permit price. It was referred to Public Services and postponed to the meeting of September 27th. So we would have an update. Do you have an update, Councilor Harpen?
I do have an update. We did meet as a public service committee, myself, Councilor Leskowitz, and Councilor Wilkinson, and we received a transfer station ordinance change from the administration. The mayor was in the meeting along with Kathy Eade and the commissioner, and we did review the summary here. So the mayor and the administration is requesting new rates for the transfer station. As a committee, we approved it as written. The mayor is bringing up the rates so that we pretty much break even at the transfer station. So we are not making any money there. This is just bringing us to where we need to be. So the permits for residential will go up from $60 to $70, and the commercial will go from $85 to $100. The residential MSW, the solid waste, the old rate was .07489, and the new rate will be .0829. And that's pretty much it. So we agree with the mayor. The mayor is doing this just so that the transfer station will break even, and we approved it as a committee.
Okay, so we were going to do hopefully we'll have enough, the posting of all the fees and changing the fees will be enough pages to be a municipal bulletin. So I guess a motion to refer to finance for their final fee analysis proposal. Hopefully someday we'll publish it, would be in order.
I'll move.
Second.
When do we want to bring it back, Councilor Bona? Second meeting in October?
Sure.
With date certain, second meeting in October. Any discussion, any more discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have to do roll call vote.
Barbo,
Yes.
Bona,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Obasahan,
Yes.
Alaskowitz.
Yes.
Sapienza.
Yes.
Shade,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Blackburn.
Yes. 9 yeas, motion carries. Thank you, Councilor Harpen, for work of you and your committee. Let's move on to the next bit. Council Paper 11,790, an ordinance to amend Section 10 entitled Special Regulations of Chapter Z of the revised ordinance of the City of North Adams by inserting in numerical order therein the following Section 10.13. This has been voted and moved several times. An update from the General Government Committee, and this would have to be referred to the Planning Board before we can do a final vote and publish. Right? Is that the right one? Is Z the?
Yes.
Okay, so Councilor Wilkinson, would you like to give us
Sure.
an update and then make the motion to refer to the Planning Board?
Yes. I think that since this thing has been around for so long, memory serves me, and it could be wrong, 1.5 years, I'd like to give you a little history of where and what and how and why. This is all started, again, more than a year ago by Councilor Bona, who had a concern that regular rentals have to be inspected. They have regulations, but the problem was come in, and Councilor Bona can correct me if I'm wrong, certainly, is that there are some people that were doing short-term rentals that were doing that because their apartments couldn't meet long-term rentals certificate of occupancy. I believe that's how this all started. It went through a number of versions. I believe it was sent to committee. It was worked on. A document came back to council. Nobody in council really liked it. The building inspector did not really support it because we were attempting to put in place an ordinance that he could not support, and there was no point in putting in an ordinance that we couldn't regulate, or it couldn't have, it would have been a waste of time. In any event, it went back to, probably went to a couple of other committees in the meantime, but in the meantime, it finally referred back to general government. So we took on the task, we looked at it, saw that we really didn't have a whole lot to do with it until we could figure out a way of coming up with an ordinance that could be actually meet Mass Building Code. It was very difficult. The mayor was gracious enough to take on the task, and there was an ad hoc committee. So general government sent it back to administration. There was an ad hoc committee that she set up with herself, Michael Newvalley, head of community development, and Bill Moranti, who is head of inspection services and also the building inspector. They met a number of times. I attended the meetings representing general government. We had a hard time. We went through 3, 4, maybe even 5 drafts. We brought in Zach Fury, who was the one who originally did the first one when he's still working as an employee for North Adams in community development. He's now moved on and is working for the state, but we have retained his services, and he's working as a consultant. And we kept hitting a stone wall, or a brick wall, however you want to say it. And finally we said, okay, we did the mean thing of sending it to Mr. Moranti and said, okay, what can you work with that will meet building code? And guess what? We came up with something. Certainly with the help of others. We now have a document that was in your packet. It was also on the city's website under City Council, and I really like it. I think it meets all the criteria we need. It's almost satisfactory to the building inspector, though he still has some reservations, but that's certainly understandable. But we need to start somewhere. If we don't start this in the real near future, we have nowhere to go. You could send it back to general government. We've done our best. You can send it back to the administration. They've done their best. You can say no to, obviously we would like to move this thing forward, and the next step is the planning board. And after that, if the planning board says yes, it'll come back to City Council, and I'll be the first one to move to a second reading and publish by law. Because if that doesn't happen, then it just dies. There's no place to refer it to anymore. You can send it back to general government, and the next chairman of general government can call a meeting, because I'm certainly not, because we've done our best. So I guess I don't want to say it's all or nothing, but we need to have a place to start. We have to put something on the books. And I think this particular document is good enough that other communities are going to copy. Because there's many other communities out there, they're like ostriches. They just put their head in the sand and hoping for the best. But the bottom line is, if we have no regulation whatsoever and no inspections for short-term rentals, then someday one of these places may burn and people may die. And guess what? Guess who's going to get sued, amongst many others probably, would be the city of North Adams, because we didn't do proper inspection services. We need to start somewhere, and this is a great document to start. Highlights of it, I hope you all had a chance to read it. If you're doing one of these in your own home, you're going to rent out a room, this regulation doesn't affect you. If you have a 2-family duplex and you want to do one side, this document doesn't affect you. If you have a up to 4-family, you would just have to follow the rules for 4 families. Whatever a 4-family for a long-term rental, short-term rentals would have to meet that. It's not that hard. Over that, we look at, you're trying to run a business. If you're outside the city, or even if you live inside the city, and you want to make some money, you're running a business. So, many years of being on the planning board, I tried to figure out how much it was, but all I can say it was a long time, more than one term. If you want to run a business, all business have to come to the planning board for what's called site plan review. In that site plan review, there's an inspection, you have to register, fee is nominal, you get a list of criteria that you must follow, and it's followed up on as to whether you do that criteria or not. I think it's wonderful. And that's all, I don't want to drag this out. That's the criteria of it. And as saying that, I would like to move that this be referred to the planning board.
Actually, we have to have a joint public hearing.
That's what I meant for joint public hearing. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Joint public hearing with the planning board. And hopefully, if the planning board approves, it will come back here. I make that motion.
I want to clarify, it's a little confusing, and I think it has to do maybe with the turnover in the clerk's
Can we
office.
get a second for discussion?
I want to clarify the actual topic, because we have there's two ordinances here. There are two papers here that are basically the same paper.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify, and so I think we renamed it. There's two papers, but we edited it. Mayor, do you have any, and Mr. Moranti's not here either.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see him. Does anybody kind of recall, because I wasn't on, do you recall, we had an ordinance 2 years ago under the former council, the last term. It went through, it went to planning board, the planning board
Approved it.
approved it with changes, it
Yes.
came back here,
Yes.
and then it got shot down and we started over.
It got shot down and referred to general government.
Again back in January, so it looks like they're basically, it's 11,790. It's the same kind of paper. I think it looks like we didn't really need to rename it, even though it did change. So we're going with, there's two items on your agenda. One is 790, one is 790-1. I think the new ordinance is just going to stay at 790. Are you comfortable with that?
I am.
Okay, so there's a motion to refer to a public hearing with a joint public hearing with the planning board, and a second. Do we have discussion? Counselor Bona.
Not sure if I understood it correctly, and through the chair, either to Counselor Wilkinson or Mr. Moranti, but you said that if someone has a duplex and one of the units is an Airbnb, that this doesn't affect them, but wouldn't they still be getting an inspection?
They would, if they were a long-term rental, they would have to get an inspection on changing of every tenant. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Morandi can explain it more in depth. I was just giving you the general concept.
So if it's a short-term rental, they're not required to get an inspection if it's a duplex?
Please, to the microphone so the people at home can hear you.
I would say that all short-term rentals will be affected by this in some manner. The building code implications are less if you are a single family and you're renting out a room. They're less if you're a duplex and you live in half and renting out one side. When you get to those standalone, that's where the professionally managed, those are the ones that are more involved in the building code. But all of them will be affected by this ordinance due to inspections and the other fees and registration and all those things that are in here will affect all of them.
Okay. That's how I was hoping, and
Right, but
the way you explained it, you made it sound
Well,
like if they're in a house that you live in or a duplex, that this doesn't affect them. But the truth of the matter is, they are in some way going to be getting an inspection.
May I follow up?
Counselor
The
Wilkinson.
point I
and
was
then-
trying to make is there was the big fear when the first draft came out that came to council, that there was going to be the need to be an architect, there was going to be the need to do all this. What I'm saying is that's not the case. Yes, you have to have an inspection. I was being very general. yes, you have an inspection, but the fear of architects and all that, that's not there.
Right, okay. Thank you.
If I might just add one thing I think is important.
Counselor Wilkinson?
Part of this ordinance, too, is that right now, of course, short-term rentals in a residential zone are illegal. The end of this would change zoning ordinance to allow short-term rentals in a residential zone. It's the last page of the thing. So it would be an actual ordinance. Again, that would get changed. And they could be used with a special permit. The degree of special permit depends upon what you're trying to get a permit for. Next door, a six-family, an out-of-town guy is buying, something like that. It would be different. But part of this is to actually change the ordinance to make short-term rentals legal.
So I want to clarify. So you keep talking about these multi-units. Somebody buys a second home, so it's their second home, so they obviously don't live here year-round. They come and they spend a few weeks in the summer, they come up, they go skiing, they spend Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever their holidays, spring break, whatever. But it's a single family and it's in a residential. You're calling that a business, and they are going to have to go before the planning board and get a special permit.
The ordinance as is written is more specific than that, and again, you'd have to ask the specifics to Mr. Moranti.
And I also want to clarify and just reiterate my complaint about this is that you all that were sitting at the table did not include anyone who's actually impacted by this, other than there was no second homeowners, there were no people that have invested
Right.
in the city and done this. It was all done as this is the building code and this is what we have to do.
No, that's not true at all.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you've
No,
done.
that's not true.
No, that's not true.
Okay, so who
May I
was in the room?
explain?
We've had 17 meetings on this. We've had input from the public at every meeting except for the ad hoc committee. We took into consideration all of the input that's how this document got here, from where it started. We tried to trim it as best we could so that the language was clearer, so that there was less language, so that it was more on point. But there are, and again, this is the 17th time I think I've said this to this group, there are things that no matter what we write, we cannot change the building code. That's a fact. That's just the way it is. This ordinance allows people to do this in zones where it was never allowed before. This allows the planning board to have a look at it and the neighbors to have a say about it by going to the planning board. So it hasn't been done in a vacuum by any sense.
Okay, let me correct my statement. The last meetings where you started the ad hoc committee, the only input from the public you got was the previous comments that had made over the last 2 or 3 years that were coming up.
I'd like to.
That's a clarification.
I'd like to clarify that more.
No, I think
The General Government Committee referred it to administration. The administration, that was what they were doing. The ad hoc committee was amongst administration. They allowed me to sit in just because they wanted somebody from general government to be there too, since we referred it. It wasn't, let's open this up. I mean, we tried to make it as clear as possible, but the administration was doing what we asked them, their job. And amongst the experts that they had in the room about building and community development and all that, it was never meant to be an open forum. But they were going to make their best recommendation and send it back to general government, and that's exactly what they did.
Okay, so along with my other clarification question is there a way to add a line into the bottom of this that if and when I guess would be more, and hopefully if the state changes some of the building code, that this ordinance adapts, and this is something we would need an opinion from the solicitor on, a way to write it so that if the state laws change, we don't have to go through this all again. Our ordinance can become as liberal as whatever the state law is.
If I may, I would say that would be as simple as one line being removed from this ordinance. if they were to make it different. Depending on what they add or take away, it could be as little as one line that refers to that R1 use on those standalone properties. So it isn't overburdened with building code language or anything in here that we have to change. It's just a matter of fact that when you have a standalone building that is operated as a miniature hotel, it has to be built as a miniature hotel according to the building code. And when and if they change that, it's one line that we have to remove that R1 and change it to whatever the state says. But at those committees, just to clarify again, we did have documents from two individuals that sit here that provided the committee with those documents right up to the last. We were taking in, comment from the public right up to the last minute of this document being created.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate the work you guys have done. The only other issue I got more complaints about than this was parking. So I got a lot of emails over the history of this ordinance, so thank you. Councilor Barbara, you had something to add.
I do. I have some questions.
Okay. Mr. Moritz, you might want to stay.
Yeah, through the chair too, who I'm not sure if the mayor wants to answer some, but I'm still really confused, and I'm sorry.
No, it's just we're having some feedback from the owl or for someplace.
There's something going on.
Somebody's got a radio on back there or something.
I think we're set.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Thank you.
I do have some questions. I wasn't at all 17 previous meetings, and I don't have minutes to read all 17 previous meetings, so I hope you can bear with me.
Sure.
But I'm still having a real difficult time understanding this hotel quality and this need for inspection. It sounds to me like what's being presented is we're going to have some tiered criteria for compliance, which I do not understand how one unit is required for this, one for that, one for something else. So that's kind of struggling with me, and I continue to repeatedly hear stated in one form or another that we need to insert building code into city ordinance, which I do not understand why building code needs to be included in city ordinance. And last, maybe the mayor would be able to provide us, I've heard multiple times that we're not able to differentiate how many units are in the city. I found that pretty easy to find on the state website. There's 67 registered short-term rentals in the city. I was able to find the income that's collected off of those through DOR for tax, and I'm really struggling with how the administration is accepting tax to close to almost $100,000 in hotel rental tax on these short-term rentals on properties that are illegal. So I'm just really stuck with how the state is taxing properties that are unable to be inspected or enforced, and what we are continually hearing to be illegal. I don't know who wants to dig on that, but if somebody could take a shot at it, I'd appreciate that. Because I'm getting a ton of emails about that myself.
Well, my comment is that's 67 that are registered with the state, for one, and I know that there are ones out there that are not registered. Secondly, Airbnb and all of those other commercial short-term rentals require you to pay taxes when you rent, whatever the state taxes are. So the money is going in and it's being collected as a rooms tax. And so I'm not sure if the 100,000 is specified specifically, because I haven't looked at the report. Is it specific to short-term rental, or is it
Yeah, the numbers were provided to me by the mayor.
Okay, so then because they're collecting it, because Airbnb and Vibro and all of the commercial ones are collecting it, they send it to the state then delineates our share. Go ahead, Mayor.
And up until this point, we haven't had anything, can everybody hear me? Up until this point, we haven't had a mechanism to do these inspections. So, I mean, they register with the state tags them as occupancy or, hotel motel tax, and that's how we collect it. Even when you asked for that information, Councilor Barbara, we had to drill down to kind of get it a little bit. But again, it goes back to tracking and reporting, and we are drilling down more on the GL, so it is able to be pulled out. But this ordinance, number one, I think would help us. I know it will help us get more businesses, more STRs on the books, and I'm just more concerned about safety and accountability in these houses, to make sure that they're up to code. If I have an apartment house, I have to get a certificate of occupancy. So why shouldn't these people as well, who are renting to people for short periods of time?
Counselor?
I just want to do somebody else.
Well,
Okay.
it's to the question.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
go.
Yeah, so, also, and I'm sure, Mr. Moranti can confirm this, but part of the reason there's tiered levels, there's that already existing. If you have an apartment house with only 2 apartments versus one with 4, you have to have different kind of fire alarms. If you have apartment houses of certain sizes and square footage, it requires different laws. You can't have certain contractors cannot work on apartment houses once they're over so much square footage. So a lot of these tiers are already set in place. So I think, again, some of that does carry over from the state building department, but would that be correct? Size is a big part of it. The bigger the square footage, the more units you have, it's already there.
Can I just ask more follow-up question? What category or what tier will MCLA fall into? How will their dorms be inspected when they rent those out for short-term rentals?
They're inspected as dorms by the state. They're a state entity. It's not in our jurisdiction to deal with that or to really discuss that. It's about, they are built as dorms. That's totally separate than being built as a 4-family and using it in a dorm-like scenario as a short-term rental.
Okay.
That's where this building code struggles. If they were built like dorms and they were dorms, we would know exactly what to do, but that's not the case. So in this case, Mr. Bona is absolutely right, but these tiers already exist. And I know, maybe we don't want to include building code in the ordinance, and we shouldn't, but they overlap in many cases, and in this case, they overlap severely. I mean, it's a use of a building that's already regulated by the building code. So you're changing that use. Now you have to make it fit in a box. And that's our attempt, this ordinance, to get us there without too much pain. And quite frankly, they could have been legitimized 2 years ago if it was accepted on the first go-round. We'd already have an ordinance in place that we could be amending and if it became a problem.
Counselor Harpen and then Counselor Shade.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for the work that you put in on this. I know this is a tough ordinance. We've been through it and we've discussed it a lot. There's been a lot of input, and I appreciate everybody's work on it, but there are a lot of factors that affect this. I mean, it's the building code, it's safety of people that are visiting North Adams and people that live in North Adams. It affects our economy, it affects our tourism, it affects hotels and other businesses. And it affects investors that are coming here to our city and invest. So I do agree with Councilor Blackmer. This has been an issue that has had a tremendous amount of public comment. From all sorts of different areas, mostly from developers, though. People that are coming to North Adams and putting their money into our neighborhoods. Really, there's some of the homes that they're buying, they're fixing them up and they're renting them out, and we're making money on that. And I think we have to remember that as we're writing this ordinance. So, that's something that I always think about. There's a gentleman that certainly keeps in contact with what's going on with this ordinance, who grew up here. And he is trying to keep his family's home. He inherited the home. I mean, we have people that, their parents passed away, they inherited the home, they're trying to take care of it and maintain it, and they might rent it out a little bit here and there so that they can come back here and have the home and visit with their family and friends. So, I don't want to make things difficult for them either. I mean, I want them to come. I want developers to come. So I just want to make sure when we do have this public hearing, this is my question, and this is to the president of the council, when we do have this public comment with the planning board, that it's not restricted to 1 hour. or a half an hour, or whatever the case may be. I know that there's a really tight time frame with the planning board, but there are generally a lot of people that come, and I want everybody to be able to voice their concerns on this issue. Thank you.
I totally agree with you on that. We almost should have it on a separate night than the planning board meeting, but, Counselor Shade?
So, I'm conflicted in many ways by this ordinance, but the way it's been written and clarified is so much better than what we had in front of us before. A lot of what's written in here is so that you understand what the requirements are of the building code, so you don't have to go search for them. They're right in the ordinance, they're telling you what they are. And that helps clarify things a little easier. This document is much easier to read than the previous versions of it. It's a lot more clear on exactly what has to be done. And it's a starting point. It's not the end. It really isn't. Things will need to be more developed and evolved as time goes on, and changes will need to be made. But it's a starting point that will allow us to get these rentals registered so we know about them, and give us the opportunity to know where they are, and also give us the opportunity to limit the city's liability in case of safety issues, because the primary focus needs to be keeping people safe. And that is really important, and right now there's no mechanism to inspect and ensure that people in these buildings are safe and that their buildings meet the building code, unless they're owner occupied, in which case, because someone already lives there, they've been inspected. But in most other cases, if you just buy a new building and turn it into a short-term rental, there's no inspection process, and that's what this allows for, to make sure that people coming into the city are safe. And that's really, really important, and we need that. We can't just not have that. That is really important. And that limits the city's liability from getting sued and needing to spend millions of dollars on lawsuits, which we also don't want, because that affects the taxpayers and the people that live here. The things that are missing from this that we still need to work on is we might not have a growing population, but we do have a severe shortage of housing and available housing units in the city. It is extremely hard to rent an apartment in North Adams, and the prices have skyrocketed over the past few years because they are so limited. And they are being limited because properties that would be available for first-time home buyers or for people who would rent, a lot of them have been converted into short-term rentals. And that is something that we have to look more closely at going forward, but we can't do that until we really have an idea of how many are registered and how many are following the inspection guidelines. And so this is a really important first step to take. It's not perfect yet, and there's more that we'll need to do to make sure that it benefits business community and the people of North Adams. So there's more that needs to be done, but this is a first step that I think we need to take so that we can limit liability of the city for safety reasons, and so that we can continue to work on those things with the business community, with the residents of North Adams, so we can get somewhere that will eventually evolve into something that everybody's comfortable with. Nobody's going to be comfortable at first with all of the things, but we're going to get there, and we'll do it together. But we have to take the first step, and that's what this is. And so I think it's important that we take this step, we move it to the planning board, and hopefully we enact an ordinance that will keep everyone protected and safe, and then we can work out everything else as we continue to go along. Thank you.
Counselor Sapienza.
Yes, I've read this document a couple of times, the new proposed ordinance, and I find it a much easier read than the previous versions of it. When I was first appointed to the city council back last June, I was presented with this, and it was very hard to understand. And the ad hoc committee, Councilor Wilkinson, Mr. Moranti, and the mayor were all involved, and I think they did an excellent job in getting us a good ordinance that would be, I would support sending it to the planning board. And it's a very difficult job in one way. We're trying to regulate an industry, short-term rentals, which is primarily unregulated throughout the country. The short-term rental business was kind of propagated by these websites like Vrbo and Airbnb and a few others, and they have no influence on what the local and town ordinances are. All they're doing is making a broker house to be able to, facilitate people to be able to find these residents and be able to stay in different parts of the country. So I applaud those who worked on this. I think they did an excellent job, and I would wholeheartedly support this to go to before the planning board. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to clarify, it's going to a joint public hearing with us and the planning board.
I
just
stand
want to
corrected
clarify
on
that. I don't
yes.
want, it's, anyone else wish to speak? Okay, I just want to make one last, I do not think that a developer and a second homeowner are analogous, but they fall in the same category for this. I wish and hope that the state will fix that, because they do have an issue with that. But as an overall, I appreciate the work that's been done. This has been going on longer than the last few years. It's been going back since I was on the council, before I was off the council, before I was back on the council, and then I've been dealing with this in my professional life since 2013. So this is an ongoing issue in communities, but most people I know that go out of town frequently use one of these services, and I know that people come here using it, and I don't want to deter people from visiting our city or investing in our city. So we have a motion and a second. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Shade again.
Sorry, just one more thing. Another thing that's really important when you're looking at these short-term rentals is that they're being done on residential properties, which means that the property tax rate is at a residential rate and not a commercial rate. If you were to try to open a business of a bed and breakfast or a motel or hotel, you're talking about a significantly higher rate of tax than you do on a residential property. And so that alone is a cost savings that you're going to get here in North Adams that you don't get in other communities, because we have one of the lowest residential tax rates in the entire state. So that's something really important to point out and understand when you're developing these properties, that you're paying so much less in property tax than you would if you wanted to open a hotel or another type of business, because it's being done in a residential. So that's something really important to keep in mind as well. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so we have a motion to refer to a public hearing, joint public hearing with the planning board. I don't have a return date because it's going to depend on their schedule. Obviously, it's too late to get on their next meeting. Given the scheduling issues that we've had that Councilor Harpin mentioned and I've complained about in the past, where we're jammed in before their meeting and they stop the public hearing and go straight to their meeting, that we may have to schedule it for a non-planning board night. So we will
Assign a return date, and if we don't.
Yeah,
get it
so,
back-
well, the return date back to us is going to be, they're not going to meet till November, so we're going to say the second meeting in November.
Yeah.
So hopefully I would think we could get it done by then. How's that? So we have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote.
Barbo,
Yes.
Bona,
Yes.
Harpin,
Yes.
Abasahan,
Yes.
Alaskowitz.
Yes.
Sapienza,
Yes.
Shade,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Blackmer.
Yes. 9 yeas, motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughtful contributions to this conversation. I'll just make sure. We're going to combine 790 and 790-1 is one paper.
Point of order.
I'm sorry.
I believe 11790-1 was what I introduced as a secondary paper in regards to this.
Oh, is that?
So I would formally like to withdraw it.
Okay, well, then let me read it into the record, and I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. So, Council Paper 11,790-1, an ordinance to amend Section 10 entitled Special Regulations of Chapter Z of the Revised Ordinances of the City of North Adams. You're going to move to withdraw your
Move to
paper?
withdraw the paper.
Or actually, you can withdraw without objection.
Withdraw without objection?
We don't even have to vote. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
There we are. Council Paper 11,826, an ordinance amending the revised ordinances of the City of North Adams regarding the various fees established in the city code. Counselor Bona, do we have a motion to
I do a
postpone?
motion to postpone to, I believe we mentioned at the beginning,
Second meeting in October,
October.
and we will combine all of any related
Well,
fees.
Yeah, so where we're at with this is we have all these different departments, the different committees that met, and there's these separate spreadsheets that were developed after our last administrative officer left. So we need to get those back into a city hall master. I think it's just going to be easier for us to have it in one big master spreadsheet again versus looking at multiple different formats. We also still have not, we tried, but we have not met yet with the building department. We met, but weren't able to have staff there to help answer our questions. So that's another step why we're still not at where we should be. So postponed till second meeting of October.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Barbo,
Yes.
Bona,
Yes.
Harpin,
Yes.
Obasahan,
Yes.
Alaskowitz.
Yes.
Sapienza.
Yes.
Shade,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Blackmer.
Yes. 9 yeas, motion carries. Council Paper 12,156, an ordinance to amend Chapter 8, Section 22, entitled Department of Public Safety regarding the qualifications of police. It was referred to Public Safety and postponed to the meeting of September 27th. Have you met on this particular issue?
Yes, we have. We met on Tuesday, August 30th, and the Public Safety Committee discussed this in great detail, and we decided that we would be in favor of changing the ordinance to allow, basically the change would be remove the in-state residency requirement for police officers and would allow police officers of the city of North Adams live anywhere within the 25-mile radius of the city. And reason being is that we do not use civil service anymore, and the civil service required that there was an in-state residency for police officers, from what I understand. And basically what this ordinance, this amendment to the ordinance will do is it will allow us to have a bigger pool of applicants for our police department, which is severely understaffed. So at this point, I would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance, Chapter 8, Section 22, entitled Department of Public Safety, to include the words, to remove the in-state residency and to add the words live anywhere within a 25-mile radius of the city.
Just for clarification, all you have to do is say pass to a second reading and publish as required by law as presented.
Pass to a second reading and publish as required.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll just make a comment that I don't agree that people should live out of state, so I don't support this. State troopers have to live in Massachusetts, and they're from all over the state, so I disagree with this, so I'll be voting against it if anybody cares. This is a roll call vote.
Barbo,
No.
Bona,
Yes.
Harpin,
Yes.
Obasahan,
Yes.
Alaskowitz.
Yes.
Sapienza,
Yes.
Shade,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
and Blackmer.
No. 7 yeas, motion carries. Thank you for the committee's work on that, though. Council Paper 12,157, an ordinance to amend the entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic Article 5, stopping, standing, or parking generally, Section 13-49 regarding parking prohibitions on certain streets. It was referred to Public Safety and postponed until today's meeting. An update and the motion to pass to a second reading and publish as required by law would be in order.
Okay. Did you want?
Make that movement first. You can make
Okay,
that movement.
I'll make a motion to move that to a second reading, publish as required by law.
Second.
Second, and go ahead. Update.
Okay. At the same public safety meeting, we discussed the prohibition of parking on the easterly side of Central Avenue. And this is because the narrow width of Central Avenue, passage of emergency vehicles would not be possible should there be cars parked on both sides of the street. Right now, there is no ordinance that says that parking is restricted on either side, and this ordinance would specifically prohibit parking on the easterly side of Central Avenue.
Any comments or questions from any counselors? We have Counselor Bona?
Yeah. Through the chair, Mayor, I don't know, do we send out notices at all to residents when, or do we still send out notices letting them know that may be a change?
Yes, I believe the Traffic Commission, when they talked on this topic, sent notices to all of the people in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. And this is a roll call vote.
Barbo,
Yes.
Bona,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Obasahan,
Yes.
Alaskowitz.
Yes.
Sapienza,
Yes.
Jade,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Blackmer.
Yes. 9 yeas, motion carries. Council Paper 12,161, Mayor's Community.
We already did that.
Oh, that's right, sorry, thank you. Council Paper 12,172, Mayor's Communication 96, recommending the appointment of Deborah Forja to serve as a member of the Cemetery Commission for a term to expire October 3rd, 2025.
Second?
Any discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Barbo,
Yes.
Bona,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Obasahan,
Yes.
Alaskowitz.
Yes.
Sapienza.
Yes.
Shade,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Blackmer.
Yes. 9 yeas, motion carries. Council Paper 12,173, Mayor's Communication Number 97, requesting time for Henry Art of the Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership to provide a presentation about their 10-year partnership plan. Without objection, Mayor?
Thank you, President Blackmer. I'd like to introduce Mr. Art, who is going to give a brief presentation about the Woodlands Partnership.
Thank you, and I will try to keep this brief. I have some materials that everybody should have received this evening, including a script, which I'll try to follow, of my comments, a brochure on the Woodlands Partnership, as well as the main reason for me being here tonight is that we are in the process of revising and updating our 10-year plan that will guide the Woodlands Partnership over the next decade. And we would very much like to have feedback from governmental bodies that are representing the member towns that are in the partnership, member municipalities, as well as the public. And so anyone listening in, you're invited to read the draft of our plan, which is available at our website, which is www.mohawktrailwoodlandspartnership.org. And you have received a copy just of the executive summary. The entire document is over 100, slightly over 100 pages, and I didn't want to kill any more trees than necessary. So I am the chairman of the board of this organization, and I'd like to just give you a very brief overview of what the Woodlands Partnership is, in case you're not aware of this public body. But it is a group of 21 towns in northern Berkshire and western Franklin counties. We don't map onto any other geopolitical entity. We are a public body, and we consist of up to 21 towns, 17 of which have already voted by either town meeting or by governmental body to join the partnership. And the partnership also includes the regional planning bodies, the watershed associations, economic development organizations and bodies, the Massachusetts forestry industry representatives from the Massachusetts Forest Alliance and the Massachusetts chapter of the Society of American Foresters. We have also representatives from the University of Massachusetts, academics that are involved, as well as a liaison at this point from the U.S. Forest Service and a representative from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. The history of our organization is that we came into being as a public body through legislation which was passed in October of 2018, state legislation that created us, and then a shared stewardship framework signed between the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs and the U.S. Forest Service the following year. So since 2020, we have been meeting as a board, started in person and now in Zoom format, and we're going back to a hybrid very soon. And we have been charged with by state statute with the following mission: that we are to conserve and sustainably manage working forest landscapes within our geography. We are to protect forests from threats, and these threats may be environmental or human-caused. To enhance public benefits from trees and forests, to encourage sustainable natural resource economic development of the region. And what we would love to do is revitalize our forest economy and really put an emphasis on local woods. And finally, to support sustainable ecotourism and recreation, which is part of the economic development. So, so far, the partnership has been involved in a series of grants to municipalities, and we have...
Could you try again?
Hello. Alexa is with us somewhere.
I'm not sure I understand.
I think it's your cell phone.
I don't think so. Is it? My cell phone's muted. Oh, well. I'll put Alexa in my back pocket, or she's everywhere. At any rate, we have been involved in facilitating grants to our member municipalities, and these include grants of $20,000 to individual municipalities for projects that are within our mission. And these have ranged from trails to actual purchase of forested lands for conservation, for urban forestry projects of replanting trees that have been killed by insects or other environmental diseases, and as well as commissioning forest management plans for carbon sequestration or for sustainable forest management. And North Adams has a management plan that is under public comment right now that was facilitated partially through the Woodlands Partnership. We also have $60,000 grants that we have been making available for region-wide or multiple municipality programs. And there have been several of those, including a program that LEVER, North Adams Economic Development Organization, has come up with the Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership Entrepreneurial Challenge. And they have made 2 such grants over the last several years. And North Adams itself has benefited from grants that have been used for some of the planning for the Adventure Trail, as well as mapping out and developing other trail networks within the city. We are also involved in trying to encourage a relationship of the municipalities with the state to encourage a greater equity and greater funding of payments in lieu of taxes. And this is part of an emphasis that we're placing on municipal financial sustainability. We know that as we try to improve the infrastructure for human enjoyment of our forested landscapes, this comes with a cost to the city, and the entire program is designed to try to make this partnership and its programs have zero cost directly to the city, so cities and towns that are members. So we do not want to incur any costs, and we want to encourage the state and have a standing committee of the partnership that is looking at means of influencing a more equitable distribution of payments in lieu of taxes, as well as increasing the base amounts. So as of this moment, the partnership has not received any annual line item funding from either the state or from the Forest Service, but we are continually asking them for that. But we have been successful over the past several years of awarding nearly $2 million worth of grants that have come out of the U.S. Forest Service or from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and we have just been notified this past month that we are in line for some substantial funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture through their climate smart forestry program and their commodities grant program. That a grant was announced 2 weeks ago to the New England Forestry Foundation, which is our administrative agent. So we're not quite sure how that is going to be translated into actual monies that will be then granted to municipalities and organizations within our region, but stay tuned. So the draft of the partnership plan was created in 2015, which was 3 years before we were even authorized by the state legislature to exist. And we're in the process now of updating and revising that plan so that it is a statement of what the law says we should be doing, as well as what we want to do on behalf of the region. And to that end, we are in the process of having a draft. It's available online, as I said, and we would love to know how different municipalities within the region, what they see as their greatest needs that we should be addressing over the next 10 years. And that's the reason for me being here tonight, is to get some feedback from you. If you don't have tonight feedback that you'd like to give, we do have a portal on our website. Again, MohawkTrailWoodlandsPartnership.org, where all of the documents, all the minutes of our meetings reside, as well as a place for the public to provide commentary on the plan, what they would like to see, and perhaps reactions to what they read in the draft that they don't want to see. And we are in the final stages of collecting information. Next month, we hope to have a board meeting. We are planning to have a board meeting in which the draft plan will be accepted, and this won't be written in stone, in that we are obligated to review the plan every year and make amendments to it as needed. But it is a large step that we're taking right now in trying to get a plan that is basically looking at the following components, and there are 4 main themes within the plan, and lots of sub-themes within each one of those, but to conserve forest lands, and this would ultimately involve purchase of forest conservation restrictions from private landowners, with, again, with an acknowledgement that this should not alter the tax base for the municipalities where these forests exist, to encourage sustainable natural resource-based economic development, local woods, and trying to increase the fiscal sustainability of the municipalities which are within the region. And then finally, a component of public education, which might include also having a virtual forest resource center that we have been notified that we do now have funding for. And a step further would be a physical forest center, which would provide information to both the traveling public, to tourists and visitors, as well as to the citizens of the region, on how best they could manage their forests. And all of this is hopefully going to be taken and put into some shape over the coming, we're in our final 2 weeks of the process. North Adams being, I think, the last but not the least of the municipalities which we have had public meetings with and made presentations to. So with that, let me not ramble on any further, but invite any comments that you might have, any questions you might have that I could clarify, and urge you all to participate in what we're doing, and to encourage North Adams to keep on applying for funds. Our grant programs are anticipated to continue on and probably even increase in amounts of resources that would be available. So with that, let me stop and thank you again for your attention. And
thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Well, okay, Councilor Bassahan?
Thank you, Mr. Hawk.
Art. Very simple answer.
Thank you for that presentation, and I appreciate it. And appreciate the executive summary and the goals. And one thing that, sticks out to me is that through all this, this 10-year plan and going back to like the public education is that remembering the history and the land recognition. So as long as that remains within the 10-year plan and that we are educating those on the land and those who were that occupied that land before, I think that speak volumes to this and something that really would sit near and dear to me, so that way that doesn't go away. Right. Because that's very important for us to continue to have recognize the people that were on that land before us. So.
Absolutely. We start all of our meetings with a land acknowledgement, but we want to get way beyond that in trying to involve the indigenous communities with their knowledge of how these lands were managed for 99% of their human occupation. So we are dealing with a very small sliver over the last 300 years of the history of our forests and human interactions with them. And for the vast majority of the time, it was the indigenous peoples, the first peoples on the land. And they have a lot to offer, but at the same time, we don't want to make demands that are unreasonable. We've encouraged them to participate in various programs that we've had, and we have discussions that are scheduled for next month with a group out of Ashfield, Massachusetts, which represents the Abenaki, and we'll see where this leads, but it is an interest that we have, and it's part of the new funding that's being available from the federal government is focused at that. So it will continue.
Councilor Sapienza.
Yes, through the chair to Mr. Art. We had a presentation, I'm trying to remember if it was a separate or if it was part of a council meeting, regarding forestry and management of local forests, specifically the forest in the area of our reservoirs. How is your organization working with that organization? Because they have different ideas on how. Do they have the same ideas or different ideas on how they plan on managing certain forests, like getting rid of invasive species and possible controlled burns and things like that?
Yeah, there was a field trip at Notch Reservoir 2 weekends ago, which I attended and our administrative agent attended. And part of that whole study was facilitated by the Woodlands Partnership as part of municipal vulnerability preparedness and making funds available through that program to actually have management plans that are looking at sustainable forest practices. So the removal of plantations that were put into place in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps, entirely exotic species, removing those, working with invasive exotic control, trying to improve forest health because we are under attack by a whole range of forest diseases and insects. The woolly adelgid is now in the neighborhood. Emerald ash borer arrived over the last 5 years or so. And climate change is just exacerbating. It's making the situation worse. The answer is yes, we are in. It is a group of organizations of which we are a participant, and we're in communications with Massachusetts Audubon, the Nature Conservancy, the New England Forestry Foundation, which is our administrative agent is also an organization that has been deeply involved with this, along with Department of Conservation and Recreation, their forestry division, the U.S. Forest Service. It's really a consortium of consortiums almost, and we are pretty much on the same page in trying to get a rational, sane, sustainable approach to forest management in both the growing of trees as well as the harvesting of trees. So early on, there was some talk of wood pellets and chips and the like, and the state legislation, which created us as a public body, outlawed our participation in those. And we were very thankful that that happened, because that's not an area that that we want to expend any energy on, pardon the pun. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Art, for your presentation.
Well,
and
thank
for the
you, and if
materials.
anybody has any further comments, the webpage is there, and it is open for business. We're reading them, and these meetings that we've been having with various municipalities have been very fruitful in that we have used ideas and already modified our original drafts. So please do comment if you have any thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oh, I was like, what is she doing? Council Paper 12,174, petition from National Grid and Verizon to hold a public hearing for a pole location on State Road. I will set the public hearing for October 11th at 7:30 p.m. and the clerk will publish it. Council Paper 12,175, petition from National Grid to hold a public hearing for a pole location on Lincoln Street. I will set the public hearing for October 11th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Go back to the agenda. Open forum. Anyone wish to address the council on issues of municipal significance? 2 minutes, name and address for the record, and no personal attacks.
My name is Eric. I live at St. Joe's Court. I want to say thank you, Mayor Maxey, that you put in people with disability and the covering. I agree with that. I'm part of the Brain Center board, and I get help at the same time. Without those programs, we wouldn't be where we are today. They're very needed. I represent people with disability before I got on the disability board for the city, and I'm very concerned about them. They do come up and talk to me. I thank you all that you are supporting us and do care about us. That's so important from your heart, because it's really necessary. There's something else I want to ask you, but I forgot. So thank you very much to listen to me.
Thank you. Yes, please. And name and address for the record.
So, Barbara Alexander, 89 Wells Avenue, and I just wanted to make one point that addressing something that came up in the discussion about the short-term rental 11790-1, I think is the one we're using, but it was mentioned that neighbors might be involved in the special permitting process that's part of the ordinance that's being discussed, and I would just comment that the whole concept of a special permit being required is somewhat problematic. In other words, it adds to the regulatory uncertainty that in itself is a problem. And neighbors, if neighbors are involved, whether for an existing allegedly illegal short-term rental, or for something where someone is trying to create a short-term rental, then it's sort of the luck of the draw what the market value of someone's property is. Is their neighbor amenable or not amenable? And there's sort of a real random element then as to what the value of their property is. And have they had an argument with that neighbor or not had an argument with that neighbor? And that means that there's a really arbitrary unfairness introduced into people's property values that just shouldn't be there. And, you know, my property value shouldn't be influenced by what my neighbor thinks of me. Neighbors should be neighborly, right? But there should, and then there's what is, and what's right, and so forth. And so I just wanted to mention that and raise a little protest there. So.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? Mr. Carnemia? Yep, go ahead.
Robert Cardomino, 173 Quincy Street, North Adams. And I'm still having a problem with the rats. Okay. And there is a way to bring it under control. And with an ordinance, we can make sure that these totes are emptied every week so they don't build up. And also, if they're just leaving bags for a pickup, that they don't leave them more than one day. And if there's no totes or anything, then they should keep them undercover or in some kind of a container so the rats don't breed, okay? Because rats are territorial, and as soon as you get rid of one, another one will move in. And that's the problem. And I'd like to see some leadership from this council to bring it before the right committee so that we could discuss it. And I have other ideas on how to control the rats. You know, and we're not the only community, I understand that. But, you know, it's pretty prevalent. And, you know, they take the slum and they move it from one neighborhood to another into another neighborhood. And it brings that, it doesn't bring it up, it brings it down. But when that happens, the assessment doesn't go down, the assessment goes back up. And that's a concern for me also. And in closing, I have a gift for Mr. Wilkinson. It's rat control.
Why am I so lucky?
Mr. Cardamino, that's inappropriate, and you are over your 2
not gonna
minutes.
take it.
Mr. Cardamino, sit down.
No.
Why can't you just come to the meeting, make your case? Why do you have to try and make a joke or be funny or be inappropriate? Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? Mr. Smith, go ahead.
I'm Robert Smith. I live at 163 North Street. 2 items. One is, since Councilor Harpen has not been shown up at these meetings, is there any way to adjust when she has to speak? It's like very disturbing when she speaks. It's very loud. Is there any way to adjust that?
We can check with technology.
Well, it's got to come from somewhere. It's either coming from the back room or where she is speaking from. So I would hope
Okay.
that could be addressed.
What
Now,
does?
the other thing, which is even more important, a couple of weeks ago, I had to see some of my doctors up at the hospital, and I made a mistake of trying to walk down Eagle Street. And I took a fall across from Domino's, hit my head on the pavement, and I couldn't get up. I tried for several minutes to get up. The next thing I know, there's this lady standing over me, and she wants to help me. And then there's a man standing over next to her, and they got me up, and they drove me somewhere where I would be safe. I want to personally thank this young couple for doing that for me. I will never forget you, but that's why I love North Adams. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? Mayor, you're up. Mayor's concerns.
I thought my section got changed to mayor's updates.
It probably did, but
Okay. The biggest update for tonight is I wanted to report out to the city council that we did have a successful weekend with our parking fees. We raised a total of $8,120 between charging for St. Anthony's and Center Street. Traffic in Center Street actually was good. I think all of the businesses in that area were very happy that their customers still had parking available to them. Granted, this was a very long weekend, a lot of human resources tied up, so we are looking to automate the process. But I think overall, the people that we interacted with were great. They were happy to see North Adams, and we really tried to welcome them as much as we can. We got a lot of good feedback, which the team still needs to debrief on. But the biggest feedback we had was that they were happy that they had safe parking, and that they wondered if, for paying for 3 days, if they could get a discount. So that's something that the team will debrief about and talk a little bit more. But overall, it was a successful weekend, and I thank you all for your support. And that's all I have for an update, as it's getting very late.
any committee reports and minutes? Liaison updates and councilors' concerns. Councilor Wilkinson.
Through the chair to the mayor, if I could. It's getting dark early. And I know the side stairs over here are very dark when I leave meetings. We really need to put a light out there. I've thought about that for a couple of years now, and I never said anything. But the last committee meeting I went to last night, I believe, I noticed it on the way out, going, gee, this gets kind of icy out here. This is going to be a real problem. So I hope you maybe could look into putting a light out here. It really could use one.
Certainly will. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Sapienza.
Yes, I just want to make a comment on the parking, the event parking for the weekend. This wasn't intentional, but I happened to be out walking on Friday and Saturday evening, and I stopped by the Center Street lot and the St. Anthony's lot and talked to the people who were volunteering their own time in managing these parking lot. And I feel that from what the feedback I got from these individuals, that the parking went very well, and this is an ordinance that can be tweaked over time and adjusted as needed, but I feel it went very well. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sure.
Councilor Bona.
Since we're sort of on that topic, I guess the only thing I will say is I would like to see by the next time there's a festival, which I know we won't have Wilco or the Solid Sound next year, but is hopefully we have an app in place. It's been several years since I brought it forward, and I keep looking forward to seeing it. I think actually the tourists would be ones that would take advantage of it more so.
Councilor Harpen.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to talk softly. I have a couple of things. The first thing is the last two items on the agenda had to deal with National Grid and Verizon in a public hearing. And on both of them, it noted the location as the street name, State Road and Lincoln Street. I know in the past that we've had people come to these and wondered what the actual street address was, whether it's, 10 State Road or 1000 State Road. It depends on whether or not they're interested in coming to the hearing or not. So I think it would be important to put the actual street address of where the poles are going to be put in. So that is one of my concerns. My second concern is I've had a few people reach out to me about signs in the downtown area, specifically in the historic districts, and seeing a lot of neon signs. I know that there is an ordinance in place where these signs need to be approved by the zoning board, and I just want to, through the chair to the mayor, verify that that is indeed happening.
Yes, I believe it is. There is one neon sign that is exempt. I don't know if you consider this neon, but the First Baptist Church just put up a new sign. It looked like a mini TV, but that was exempt from our process. But if there are any that are of concern, I would definitely entertain an email, and we'll look into them.
Is that exempt because it's a church?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's still ugly.
Wasn't what the topic of conversation. Thank you, Councilor Harpen. Anyone else? So I just want to wrap up a couple of comments in regards to fresh grass. I was there for part of every day over the 3-day weekend. There was a lot of young families with young children. I was surprised. I can't imagine traveling to a 3-day festival with children under a certain age, but all power to the people that do it. Everyone seemed engaged. Everyone was really well behaved. There were no issues, other than it was so cold Friday night, and the line for hot coffee, hot cider was really, really long. It was actually longer than the dumpling line. And that on Sunday, unfortunately, I think a lot of people left early as the rain came in, and again in the afternoon. Again, who wants to entertain a few young children in the rain? So that was disappointing. But the people that were there were very enthusiastic. The people come every year. And I heard some comments or saw some things about tourists. What I think people don't understand is, one, a lot of locals go to this event. I knew a lot of people there. But it's not just local North Adams people. It's people from Pittsfield. It's people from Adams. It's people from Williamstown. It's people from our community. So this kind of tourist outsider divide that I see is disappointing, and I'm hoping that we get a little more understand that it does bring good things. Just bringing in the entertainment itself, we wouldn't have it if we didn't have Mass Mocha doing these festivals, and we've seen some great bands there. And it's just, I think it does something, and people say, oh, well, Mocha doesn't do what it was supposed to do. Maybe it doesn't do what you thought it would do, but it's way better than having an empty building. I would rather have 8,000, 5,000 people fighting over parking than have that space empty with nothing going on. And the improvements that have been made there, the quality of the entertainment, the jury jazz band closed out, the jury band was there waving and playing for everybody leaving. There's a lot of, they do a lot of work. They have a lot of local musicians. Misty Blues played on one of the stages. It's not just for outsiders. They engage with the local community, and it's for all of us to enjoy. And I hope people can volunteer and take advantage of some of the opportunities and see some of the acts that have been there in the future. I think it's a great event. I'm glad it's here. And I guess that's it. A motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We don't have to roll call. All in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody.